So many of us were told that time will heal our grief, but time doesn't heal us. It's our shift of perception and focus that bring us out of grief. If 10 years has passed and you pick up the photo of your deceased loved one and your perception remains the same, you're still missing and yearning for your loved one, and you're still thinking why they left you so early and why they're not here with you, you will definitely feel grief. But if you pick out the photo and you appreciate all the wonderful experiences that both of you have created in the past, you will feel very different. The reason why it feels like time heals wounds is because as time passes, we experience new things and gain new insights. Our perception has shifted over the years, so it feels like time heals us. But what truly heals us is when we have a shift in perception and focus. And in this video, we're going to shift our perception of grief and loss. If you have watched my video previously, you will know that a few months ago my dad passed away. And now that my emotional space has changed and become more stable again, I feel like it's time to share my thoughts on grief and loss. But instead of talking about it from a mental or psychological perspective and tell you how I process my grief and loss of my dad, what I really want to do in this video is to talk about grief and loss from a bigger picture perspective, a spiritual perspective. I find it more helpful when we see topics like death, grief and loss through a spiritual lens. Okay, so from what I observe, there are two things that keeps people stuck in the frequency of grief and loss. One of them is non-acceptance, the other thing is conflicting energy. I will explain what I mean by this. First, non-acceptance. So sometimes when we are grieving, we are told not to think about it or not to feel it. But the more you don't want to think about something, the more you will think of it. And numbing yourself is the worst thing you can do because you are suppressing your own emotion. You're not allowing your emotion to flow from a place of grief to a place of peace and joy. So acknowledging your emotion and feeling your emotion when they arise is important. It's a part of acceptance. But having said that, there is another form of non-acceptance, which is to just focus on your loved one not being there. You yearn and miss your loved one, and every little thing like song, movie or TV program reminds you of your deceased loved one. You dismiss other parts of your life and things that matters to you. Yearning and missing someone is also a form of non-acceptance. A part of you is still wishing the person to be here with you. You still can't accept that the person is gone physically. You are still thinking that if they are still here, things will be different. You will be more happy. This is not full acceptance. The reason why I was able to process my grief and loss so fast is because I don't see death as something bad. I see death as part of the process, something that we all has to experience. I also fully accepted the impermanence of physical manifestation even before my dad passed on. When I think of my dad now, I'm happy. I think of all the wonderful moments we had. Recently, I saw some of his old photos with his friends and I got reminded of the playful side of him. I'm not thinking why he isn't here or missing him, and I don't hope or wish my dad to come back here physically. That is just wishful thinking. Every one of us will experience the loss of a loved one at some point in our life. Many of us will experience the loss of our parents and spouse. A few of us might experience loss of our children. Even if we don't want to think about it or pretend it's not going to happen, it will happen. Someone is going to die at some point in time. When you fully accept that your loved one is gone physically, there can be no grief. When you desire that they be physically present with you and it doesn't happen, there will be grief. And when you're too focused on grief, you focus on absence, you're focused on what's lacking and you neglect what's present and available. When you're grieving for people who are gone physically, you're not paying attention to people who are physically present and the wonderful memories you can create with them. When you are grieving, people either spend time consoling you or leave you alone to give you the space, and you waste the opportunity to connect with others. Someone once asked me, how do I go back now that my dad has passed on? My immediate reply is you can't go back. you can only move forward. And you can only move forward if you have fully accepted that your loved one is gone physically. Once my dad died, the dynamic of my family changed. We have new roles in the family. There is no going back. Processing grief is not changing things back to normal or going back to the past. It's moving forward with a new deck of cards. Some of us get stuck when our loved one die. We think that life will never be the same again. Yes, life will not be the same again, but is it life will not be the same again and it sucks? Or is it life will not be the same again and let's embrace this new adventure? Death of a loved ones give you an opportunity to reset your life, especially if the person used to live with you. When they are gone physically, they take away habits with them. For example, my dad likes to hoard and accumulate things. Now we are free to organize and tidy out the common space. Or maybe you eat your meals at a certain time because your partner likes to do so. Now is the time to reset. The second thing I want to talk about is conflicting energy. Most of us have the desire to feel better and get over our feeling of grief. We want help with our grief and we want to move on. But at the same time, there is also conflicting belief that it's not okay to feel happy. And this conflicting belief or unhelpful perception it comes in many forms. Some of us think that if we lose our loved one, we can't be happy or we're not supposed to be happy. How can I be happy when my loved one dies? If I'm not sad or if I don't miss my loved one, it means I don't care about them. But what we fail to realize is that we are happy not because a loved one dies. We are happy because there are many other things in life that are worth celebrating and appreciating. We are happy because we choose to be happy. Sure, the death of your loved one affects your emotion, but it's not the only thing that matters in your life. It shouldn't be the only thing that determines your happiness. Some of us has adopted this weird perception that by being somehow unhappy, our deceased loved one will feel happy, respected, loved, and cared for. Ask yourself, ask your heart, does this resonate with you or not? Do you really feel your loved one enjoy seeing you being miserable? Or do you feel that your deceased loved one would rather see you living your life to the fullest and being happy? Many of our beliefs come from social conditioning and expectation. For example, we're told not to wear bright clothes. We need to suppress our happiness and not display any joy. But how much of this is really out of respect to our deceased loved one? Or are we doing it for the fear of being judged by others? Are you afraid other people gossiping about you? Like they might say, didn't her husband just die? Why is she wearing red? Or how can she be so happy? We care too much about how other people think of us and we want to be socially accepted. But all this unhelpful belief and social expectation kept us stuck in this place of grief and it's not a true indication of our emotion. Let's talk a little bit about emotion here. Emotion comes and goes. If you have no resistance towards emotion, it gets processed very fast. Because the natural movement of emotion is to move towards joy and love, which is what we experience when we are aligned with our spiritual being. But when we have certain belief of what grief is supposed to be, we keep ourselves in an unhappy place. This is not authentic because we're acting based on the general perception of what grief should be or look like what you see in the movie and TV shows. We're not allowing ourselves to feel what we really feel at any given moment in time. Instead, we predetermine how we should feel based on our belief. Of course, there will be tears when you just lost your loved one. I cried when my dad died too. When it just happened, it's new and it's raw, and we put most of our focus into it and we are easily affected. But going forward, there are many other things to focus on in life that are beautiful. Don't forget your surrounding. Remember to look at the beautiful sunset and sunrise, the clouds and the skies too. Don't forget your career, your hobbies, your friends, and your other family members. The natural movement of emotion is to move up the vibration scale. When you're not resisting being happy, you'll find many things in life to appreciate. And it doesn't mean that we will never be sad again when we think of our deceased loved one. Sometimes you'll feel sad, and sometimes you'll laugh. Emotions are just like the weather. Sometimes it will rain, and sometimes it will be sunny. they don't last forever. Even grieving people will not be crying all the time. There will be moments of silence or when they feel relief. What you need to do is to be more aware of this little pocket of sunshine in your life and focus on them, and not give all your attention to your loved one not being here physically. Many points in this video, I mentioned the word gone physically because I knew that spiritually it's not the end when someone dies. This is an intuitive knowing that I have since I was a child. When my grandpa died when I was 12, I have tears rolling down my face, but deep down inside, I felt a sense of peace. I felt that he's still here spiritually and I still feel connected. About a week after my dad died, I asked him where he put his book, where all his passwords are, and what I heard is third drawer underneath the table. The next day I opened the drawer, but I couldn't find the book. Later I realized it's slotted beside the third drawer. It's also funny how things my dad used to fix at home started to spoil after he died. Sometimes I will ask my dad for help spiritually, and I will receive the impulses to do things or be pointed to a certain resources that help me. What I want to say is your physical relationship with your loved one is gone, but a new relationship with a loved one that is based on spirituality, is available to you if you're open to it and when you move out of grief. In my book, Love Your Body, the last chapter is about death. When I wrote this book, I didn't know writing it actually helped me to prepare for the death of my dad. Do check out this book if you want to learn more about my spiritual perception of death. The link is in the video description below.